right, take two. Let's see if I can make it through this without getting a phone call. The Sacco bracket and the playoff projections from Bonzo Ball. We'll go fully into what I think will exactly happen for the playoff brackets here, and then and explain some of the Sacco rules, as well as just dive a little bit into our round one. So, playoffs as a whole, we got Coob, Roosh, Sam, and Troy. Two Cundy brothers with a chance to make the top four are defending champ Troy. He's got a long road there. He got kicked out of the bye by Ty. He's got to get through 3 straight weeks. Just a reminder to everyone, the final reminder, I think it's pretty clear and everybody understands, but Sleeper's wrong. I'm going to update Sleeper after next week. It allows me to adjust the playoffs. But yeah, Coob, Arush, Sam, and Troy are all playing each other. So the top two scorers advance, the bottom two scorers are not advancing. And then next week it will be the same thing. Mark, Ty, and whoever the two advance from, the top two scorers will advance. So each team is playing the other three teams and just has to beat two of them, if that makes sense. Now, I think out of round one, I don't know what's going on with Coop's team here. He's still got Keenan Allen in. No, he doesn't have his flex in. So projections are a little off. Coop's projection is going to say 128 when he puts in, I don't know if he's putting in Cooks, Watson, Schultz. He can put in any of those. My overall playoff projections, I've got. It's really boring. I've got. Actually, it's not boring. I have a couple upsets here. So I think Arush gets out of round one for sure. If I had to bet on one team to get out of round one, it's Arush. Josh Allen versus Dallas. He might throw the ball 50 times. McCaffrey. Kyron has been literally the RB2 over the past few weeks. Devontae's going to go nuclear against Seattle as long as they don't get a big lead. Arush's only weakness to this team really is Zeke at flex and then his tight end. So if you're going to have a weakness in fantasy football, you want it to be your tight end and your second flex probably. He's going to start, Lockett, and that's a boomer bust. But, everybody has some weaknesses. Arush just has that big solid core that, either of his top three players could go for 30, or multiple of them could go for 30, 35 points. So I think Arush is definitely moving on. When I look at Coop's team out of round one, if I have to be honest, Rachaad White has been so hot. Obviously, everyone knows that I'm not rooting for Coop's team, but Rachaad White's been good. Puka's been pretty good. Rashee Rice, he's really come on at the end of the year here. And then, James Cook, he had a crazy day last week with 5 targets, 5 catches, 83 yards. That was crazy. Kelsey has honestly been the weak link of his team. So if he somehow explodes for another nuclear vintage Kelsey game or somehow gets 2 touchdowns, Coop's team's going to be in a really good spot. Garrett Wilson, he has Zach Wilson back. So just objectively, Coop's team is really good. It does hurt that he lost Keenan Allen. And it hurts that Watson is against the Browns this week, or that Fields is against the Browns this week. But still, when you look at those two teams compared to these two teams, I think they're more well-rounded. Troy, really bad week for Tyreek to be hurt. Hurts has been up and down. He gets an easy matchup versus Seattle. ETN, he's been good, but he has a bad matchup with the Ravens. DJ Moore, bad matchup with Cleveland. Also tough that Coob's on, one of the teams he's competing against. So if Moore has a good day, probably Fields is going to have a good day. Hawkinson, Myers, Elijah Moore, TJ Axe got Mullins with him, but Mullins did do really well with George Kittle years ago. So his team's well-rounded. I'd place it just about even with Coobs if Tyreek is healthy. If Tyreek is not healthy, I'd give the slight advantage to Coob and Arush for sure. And then Sam's team, Dak's been really, really good. Buffalo's defense has been bad, so he has a decent matchup there. Henry, boomer bust. Saquon, he's been good this year. Amari Cooper, boomer bust. Michael Pittman, been good so far. Steelers, decent matchup. Kyle Pitts, really boomer bust. Jalen Warren and Najee Harris starting both of those. Sam's team, I just see a bunch of boomer bust guys. What are we going to get this week? Sam's team has the potential to go off and be the highest scorer this week, or to be the lowest scorer and never have a chance if, there's a universe where Najee and Warren both don't score and Kyle Pitts gets 5 points and like Sam is dead to rights off the bat. But there's also a universe where they do good and Derrick Henry scores 2 touchdowns and Dak throws three and Sam's team does great. But I think the two most consistent teams at this point in the season are Cougs and Arush's, so I have them advancing to the next round out of round one. A quick summary, I will give my round by round breakdown, but I just want to go a little bit since it is the beginning of the playoffs. Everyone wants to know who Bonzo thinks is winning. In round two, those teams would meet up with, if I'm correct, they would meet up with Ty and Mark. And Mark's team, Lamar, Monty, is he really a Chuba? He really has to start Chuba Hubbard? I don't know why he wouldn't start Keaton Mitchell. I guess Chuba's predicted a lot more. Has he been doing good? Oh yeah, he's been doing great. But yeah, Mark's team: Montgomery, Hubbard, Jamar, Amon-Ra, Pollard, Mostert. He's starting four RBs. All of them have been really good, trending really good. Kittle's been great. It's going to come down to matchups in that week, but I do like the look of Mark's team right now. And Ty's team, this team would be really, really great, honestly, if it had Jonathan Taylor. Without Jonathan Taylor, he has to start Devin Singletary. He has to start Brian Robinson. I mean, AJ and Debo have been really hot. As long as Ty's team stays healthy, this is going to be a tough team to box out as well the next round. A little bit weaker with Ford and Pacheco and Singletary, but Mahomes is only the QB8 this year. So I know people see Mahomes and think that's great, but really, out of the final week, if who I projected would be Koob and Arush, I mean, Arush is going to have a QB advantage with Allen. Koob would probably have a QB advantage with Fields. And Mark would have a QB advantage with Lamar. So Ty might have Mahomes, but he might have the weakest quarterback in that next round. So I'm gonna go with Mark and Arush advance into the championship out of the next round. Um, that's just my projection. That's just it is where it is. I mean, Arush has the number one QB and the number one RB, and then kind of the number. I mean, in points per game, I think he's like the number two RB in conference. So, and Arush has you know decent-ish receivers filling out the rest of his team. So I like Arish's team over Ty's to advance. I like Arish's team over Koob's. It's not that I don't think Koob is gonna do well and maybe put up a good showing at some point in the playoffs. I think he probably has two really good weeks during the playoffs, and he has one really bad week. Like that's kind of the trend of his team, and does it come in round one? Does it come in round two, round three? I don't know. I can't pick who to go to the championship because I'm betting on his team to do great 2 weeks in a row. I can bet on Arush and CMC and Josh Allen to do great 2 weeks in a row. Depending on the matchups, I just think that Papa Parlay and Arush will beat out Ty and whoever advances with them next week, whether it be Coop. And then in the championship, if it is Mark versus Roosh, I mean, Mark is so running back heavy. I mean, Jamar and Amon-Ra are really good. It's all going to depend on matchups this week, like who's favored. That's the week that Lamar is going to play the Dolphins in my hypothetical matchup here, just because I have to make a championship pick. Josh Allen versus New England, probably in a must-win. I mean, a lot will depend on if the Bills can win out and how much they're trying. Same thing with the 49ers. Luckily, that's why we have our Week 17 championship in theory. Everyone is still trying. Mark's team's deeper. I have to choose Mark's team over Arish's. Arish, he has that top heaviness, but Mark is just deeper throughout with the way all his running backs have been playing. Any one of those guys can score 2 touchdowns in any given week. Maybe not Chuba, but I mean, his other three players have been scoring 2 touchdowns. It's just he's so deep. I think this is probably our champion. Lamar, Jamar, Amon-Ra, Kittle, Pollard, Mostert, Montgomery. I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense if he's the champion. So that's who I'm going to project.